Hi, I'm James, and this is how to play Third Age, a fan-made Wheel of Time board game. In Third Age, 2 to 5 players explore a map of the Westlands, leveling up their character as they collect resources, score points, and discover new locations. Players take turns to either move their character or to play special actions from their hand, such as weaves, tactics, and plots. Friends from the series are discovered along the way, and can be recruited into your party, but if you're not prepared for a fight, then an untimely enemy might make you pay the butcher's bill. Most enemies aren't so tough, but the most powerful among them are the Forsaken. Not only are they likely to blow a hole in your side, they stick around on the board to fight anybody else who comes too close. When 3 of the Forsaken are defeated, the players face the last battle, and the player with the most victory points wins. Let's cover setup. Place the board in the middle of the table and put the Forsaken pawn somewhere within reach. I like to put them in the middle here. Put the tokens off to the side of the game within easy reach, and place each of the tiered action and character decks in their corresponding places on the board. Then give these decks a quick shuffle, make sure everyone's ready to go. The score track should also be placed towards the edge of the board, next to the defeated Forsaken tracker. Next, each player selects one of the 5 Emond's Fielders to play as. In Tabletop Simulator, this is done by clicking your name in the top right, then clicking Change Colour, and selecting the colour of the character. Let's say Nynaeve. On your player board, there's a whole bunch of information. Everybody has the same starting maximum hand size, and a 0 pace combat strength. So that's the same on every single sheet. The 3 attributes listed here are different for each character. As you can see, Nynaeve has skill, Deus Damar, and channeling, whereas Perrin has leadership, military, and skill. Place one of your attribute marker cubes over the level on each highlighted number. These always make a 1, 2, 3 pattern. You'll also note there are 3 quest tiles. These aren't actually printed on the board, but are placed there at the start of the game. On the other side of these quest tiles, the grey side, you'll see your passive abilities, which can be unlocked over the course of the game. Place each of your quests onto the player board. And finally, over here, we have the supply. At the start of the game, you have 1 favour and 1 silver to spend, a silver being worth 3 coins. The other resources you can claim in Third Age are troops, which are used for combat, and level up tokens, which are placed on followers rather than in your supply. The different denominations of coins are just that. They are worth 1, 3, and 5 respectively, but all count for the same thing. Finally, when all players have selected their characters, you each draw 3 cards from the top of the Tier 1 action deck. In Tabletop Simulator, this is done by pointing at the deck, and then hitting the number 3 key on your keyboard. And then these cards pop into my hand here at the bottom of the screen. If you can't see that, that's probably because you hit it by accident. Just hit the H key, and it'll pop back up. You can also see a hand next to your player board. Each turn, you get to do one of 2 things. You can either make a move on the board, picking up your character's model, and moving it along a road to an adjacent location, or you can play an action card from your hand. I'll go over each of these in more detail, but that's the basic mechanic that the game hinges on. Each turn, you do one of these 2 things, and then play passes to the left. When you wish to make a move, you simply pick up your piece and move it to the next location. At the beginning of the game, the only path you'll be able to take is from Emond's Field to Belorn. When you arrive at a location, you get to receive resources or cards equal to whatever is in the box. In this case, you get to reveal a character card from the top of the deck. A lot of locations also have these additional flags alongside of them. Flags allow you to take special abilities that are only available at that specific location. Belorn, for example, allows you to discard any amount of actions and draw the same amount again, allowing you to refresh your hand at the beginning of the game if you didn't like the initial 3 cards that you drew. Other symbols that appear on locations around the board are action cards. These require you to draw actions from the top of the deck. Favor. This is a resource, much like coins that you can gain from going to locations that have it. There's the coins, and there's also troops. There's the level up token, which, as I mentioned earlier, can be used to level up your followers. There's also the victory point symbol available in Amador, which gives you a point on the score track. Most of these things that you can gain from locations are fairly self-explanatory. You can draw cards, gain resources and place them into your supply, or gain points. However, revealing a character is a bit more in depth. First of all, grab the top card of the character deck and flip it over. Ugh. In this case, that's real bad, because Trollocs are going to hit me, rather than me having a chance to recruit them. I'll get a couple of examples here, just so I can show you what the different cases might be. In the case where I fight the Trollocs, I would have to lose a troop immediately, due to the top line of text, and then I would check my own combat strength against theirs. The player has to beat the enemy in order to win the combat, otherwise they lose and pay the butcher's bill, in this case, losing a coin. Additionally, regardless of whether you win or lose the fight, you will lose an amount of troops equal to the victory point value on the enemy as listed on the right hand box. Remember, this happens either way at the end of the fight. You will always have to pay a mini butcher's bill in bodies of troops. If the enemy's defeated, you get to claim the amount of points though, as well as losing the troops, meaning you move up on the score track to indicate the points gained. If the enemy's defeated, move it to the discard pile. If the enemy wasn't defeated, instead push it into the tavern row. More on that in just a moment. Let's say I reveal Bane, or the next player reveals Bane. They would have an opportunity to recruit Bane by paying the cost listed at the top right of the card. Alternatively, if the black box just under the name bar that has a line of text in it that allows you to claim the card for free, then you may do so if you meet those requirements. To pay resources for a card, simply remove them from your supply and place them back in the bag. Then you can take the character and place them near your player board. Let's say a player reveals a character and doesn't want to recruit them. In this case, that character is pushed to the top of the tavern row the same way an enemy that wasn't defeated was. Push all of the cards down one space and then move the next card into position. The tavern row is a place where players can encounter characters that other players passed up on, or themselves at an earlier point in the game. The number of slots in the tavern row is dependent on the number of players in the game, so you will always have 2 slots, but only get the 3rd and 4th slot of the tavern row with the 3rd and 4th player at the table. If a card would be pushed out of the bottom of the tavern row, however many slots that is, it then goes into the discard pile. Once things are at the tavern row, if you make a move to a location that gives you a character, you have a choice to make. You can now either reveal a new character from the deck, or encounter one of the ones that are already in the tavern row, meaning you can either recruit them or fight them. Once you get to Caemlyn, you're out of the tutorial section of the game that walks you through all of the different game mechanics, and you have some choices as to which direction to head in. You'll notice on some of these roads there are Trolloc fists stamped over them, meaning that you can't pass that unless you win a fight with a Trolloc fist. These are pretty much the same as the Trollocs in the deck you saw before, except they don't have the black italic line causing you to lose an additional troop at the start of the fight. If you win the fight, you get to pass through the Trolloc horde and continue on to your location. However, if you lose the fight, you instead get bounced back to wherever it was you came from and reactivate that location again. This is actually a cheeky way of doing that, as it's not something you usually are able to do. If you decide not to move on your turn, the other option is to play an action from your hand, or one that's attached to a follower you control. To play an action, you have to have the required level in the required attribute. In this case, looking at the example of wards, it requires me to have channeling 3, which is perfect because Nynaeve already starts off with 3 channeling at the start of the game. Place the action in front of you and announce to the table what you're doing, and then, if nobody cancels it or interrupts, you get to resolve its effects. In this case, look at the top 3 cards in a character deck. Discard any enemies and make a move. Quite a powerful effect, clearing the way before allowing you to continue moving through the board. Additionally, when you finish resolving the action, move it to the discard pile, and then you get to increase your attribute by 1, the same attribute that was used to play it. But what happens if you don't have the required attribute on your player board? Nynaeve doesn't have military. How is she supposed to play this ambush? Well, that's where followers can come in. If you don't have the required attribute, or the required level in that attribute, but you do have a follower that does, you can use them to play the card instead. When you do this, you rotate them 90 degrees to show that they've been exhausted. Any passive abilities printed on the character at this point are considered not in effect. At the start of each of your subsequent turns, you'll turn them an extra 90 degrees, meaning it takes 1, 2, and then 3 turns before they're ready again. At least, they'll be ready at the start of the 3rd turn after you use them. You also probably noticed that this ambush is a reaction card, not an action card, as the previous example, wards. This can be seen by the bold word at the start of the card's text. Reactions are played in certain conditions and often outside of the normal sequence of turn-by-turn play. In this case, ambush lets you jump to their location. There are also battle cards. These cards are used at the beginning of combat and usually give you extra combat strength or a way to escape the fight. Once you've finished, turn passes to the next player. In Tabletop Simulator, this is done by clicking your name in the big button that's not immediately noticeable as an end turn button. That's why I'm lingering on it. At the end of your turn, you must also discard down to your hand size limit if you have more cards in hand than that amount. As of yet, we haven't really covered what the goal is, so let's take a moment to look at these quests that you have at the bottom of your player board. I did mention them briefly earlier, but each one of these offers a different way to level up your character. You start off by trying to complete your tier 1 quest. In Nynaeve's case, this means moving to Ebou Dar. Whenever she takes a turn that revolves taking that action, let's say moving from Ilion along this bird and down to Ebou Dar here, she gets to complete that quest and flip it over right away, even before resolving Ebou Dar's character and 2 coins, if she wants. This unlocks a unique ability. In Nynaeve's case, she can recruit people from the discard pile, meaning no one is ever too far gone to be healed. It also gives an increase to your maximum hand size, bringing Nynaeve's to 7, and a base combat strength. Different characters have different totals in each of these boxes. If we go over to Rand, we can see that when he moves to tier, he unlocks Hearing Voices. It lets him look at the top card of a deck at the start of each turn as incredibly powerful, along with giving him a hand size of 6 and a base combat strength of 2. After you've completed your first tier quest, you can then move on to try completing your second. In Nynaeve's case, she has to raise her channeling to level 6 or higher. Once it's at the required level, the next tiered ability will unlock. This allows her to move characters to the discard pile when she doesn't like her reveals from the top of the deck, and try again instead. It's very useful for setting up her tier 3 quest, which, once unlocked, gives her the ability to draw weaves from the discard pile, an incredibly powerful effect going into the late game. One other thing to note, these are all related to the 3 tiers that are pervasive throughout the entire game's design. You'll notice so far I've only been drawing actions and flipping cards from the tier 1 character deck and the tier 1 action deck. However, as you unlock your tier 2 passive ability and tier 3 respectively, You also gain access to the other decks, meaning that once you hit tier 2, you can choose to reveal a tier 2 follower, or possibly an enemy, and you can draw cards from that deck into your hand. Each of the decks has boundaries written on the back of them to remind you what the difference between the tiers actually is. Third tier abilities also have an hourglass symbol at the start of their card text, indicating that they require a cooldown in order to be ready again after being used. This happens in the exact same way as it would a follower ability. You rotate it 90 degrees on the turn that you use it, and again at the start of every subsequent turn until it's ready again. Over the course of the game, players will accrue points from all sorts of places, mainly battles from things such as Trollic Fists or characters that they encounter along the way and defeat from the decks, but also from places like Amador and certain action cards. But when does the game end? Well, for that, you have to start getting into the tier 3 deck and encounter some of the Forsaken. Each of the Forsaken has a coloured pawn corresponding to it. In this case, we can see Asmodean has this little orange pawn. Depending on where you are when the Forsaken is revealed, depends on where that Forsaken is. So let's say Nynaeve revealed it in Ebu Dar. I'd put Asmodean's pawn in Ebu Dar to signify that that's where he is, and then move his card somewhere nearby. Immediately, I'm then thrown into a fight with him. If I kill him, not only do I get a really cool ability of being able to level up all my attributes, I get quite a lot of points, 11 in one go, which is nothing to sniff at. When a Forsaken's defeated, they go over here to the defeated Forsaken track instead of the discard pile. Once 3 of the Forsaken are killed, players go to the last battle. Well, what happens if you lose the fight? Well, it's just the same as when you lose a normal fight. You suffer the Butcher's Bill, lose the troops, as you would either way, and then continue with the rest of your turn. In this case, that means you're going to be sat there next to them at the start of your next turn. Don't worry, you're not going to have to fight them again. You can leave and move on to any new location whenever you wish, or you can even sit there and play actions from your hand if you really want to. Players only have to fight a Forsaken when they are either revealed or when they move back to that location, or in the case of a new player, move to that location for the first time. As soon as you move to the location, you must encounter the Forsaken there as if you'd revealed them before resolving any of the effects of the location. Afterwards, you resolve the effects of the location either way. Multiple Forsaken can be on the board at the same time in different places, but it's important that you never put multiple Forsaken in the same space. If you ever reveal a character and it is a Forsaken in a location where there already is one, well done, because that's quite difficult to actually find a way to do. And secondly, you must put it back on the bottom of the deck instead, essentially giving you a dead draw for the turn. Finally, let's talk about the last battle. At the end of the game, players have a chance to earn up to 50 additional victory points by satisfying the conditions in a bunch of different categories that are basically all revolving around leftover resources, unused characters, or actions that you have at the end of the game. You also get extra points for each level 10 attribute on your player board, which is a nice one to shoot for. Once players have added up their points from the last battle and moved the corresponding amount of points on the score track, a winner is determined. And that's all for this video. I hope you now feel confident enough to come and play a game. If you'd like to get involved with playtesting Third Age, we're currently in an open beta and you can play. All you have to do is head down into the description, find that link to the Third Age Discord server, and come say hi. Me or one of the chosen, my moderators, will direct you to the right place, help you get into your first game, or even join the upcoming competitive league. That's all for this video. If you did like it, please do leave a like down below. It really helps the algorithm. And leave a comment so that more people can find this and see the Wheel of Time board game that we love and hope you love too. Thanks. I'm James, and this is Third Age.